that big bump in crime that we saw in like 2020, 2021 or whatever.
It was not caused by COVID. It was caused by this Black Lives Matter attitude infesting their government.
It goes to show you the kind of bull that a lot of right-wing people, I frankly have to say, were pushing in the lead up to the 2024 election.
Do make sure you're subscribed if you aren't yet, if you're new to one of our panel debates here on Brad versus the World, and hit the like button as well. Now, we're going to talk about violent crime and actually some good news that I think we all do agree is good news. So here from Axios is the headline: violent crime rates plunge in America's biggest cities. And they highlight a number of cities here with huge drops in the homicide rate. By the numbers nationwide, homicides dropped 17.7%, robberies fell 20%, rapes declined 7%, and aggravated assaults decreased 4.8%. More from Axios here. Some of the nation's biggest cities posted especially dramatic homicide declines in the first 3 months of 2026. Among those that saw sizable percentage drops in homicide were D.C., Philadelphia, and Memphis. New York City experienced a 31% drop in homicides during Mayor Zohran Mamdani's first month in office. L.A. and Houston also posted declines during the same period. Now, guys, I think inevitably, when something like this happens, we all agree it's good news. But then partisans are going to try to say, like, who gets credit, who gets blame, what's happening here. FBI Director Kash Patel, he came out and said, "Backing the blue matters," and shared this graph and this headline. Sean, I'll come to you first. You talk a lot about crime and safety, and you have, obviously more Republican-leaning perspectives on it. Do you believe this decrease in crime is directly attributable to the Trump administration, Republicans writ large, et cetera?
So the short answer to that is no, it's not. And the reason for that is because crime, as I've said for years, is a local issue. And you can actually look at these individual cities and see where the decline happened. Like, I'm a big fan of the Democrat state's attorney for Baltimore, Ivan Bates. He came in after Marilyn Mosby. And by the way, Baltimore essentially had their George Floyd moment with Freddie Gray back in 2015. Mosby presided over the 8 highest homicide rate years in the history of the city. Normally, when we give crime stats like this, it's the highest since the 90s. She was since the history of the city. All of a sudden, Ivan Bates comes in 2023. He starts prosecuting repeat gun offenders, teams up with the federal government under the Biden administration, and by the way, a program that's continued under the Trump administration to make sure that these people get off the streets. And we see a dramatic drop in homicides in Baltimore. Again, fully, in my opinion, attributed to Ivan Bates. Nothing to do with the Trump administration. The decline started before the Trump administration. You go to Krasner in Philadelphia, one of the worst states, or district attorneys, I believe they're called over there, one of the worst state's attorneys for 7 years. Things have changed in the country. Running on not prosecuting anybody is not as popular as it was when he's running for his 3rd term. All of a sudden, what does he do? Starts prosecuting repeat gun offenders, people that he previously let go. His last year on his 2nd term and going forward, homicides drop in Philadelphia. Now, people can attribute Memphis's drop to the National Guard being there. But again, after that incident with Tyree Nichols, homicides spiked dramatically. There was a crackdown on the local level while Biden was president. The National Guard came after that, so that's a leading trend. Similar things with DC. So no, I don't think it's a federal issue. Crime is very much a local issue. And by the way, this is why you have an outlier city that elected a more progressive DA, like Austin, Texas, where homicides are up this year. It's because the attitudes of the people in key positions of power, how they administer the police, and of course prosecutions, has much more impact than federal government policy.
Yeah, I think the serious policy questions and analysis of what actually caused this usually doesn't actually relate that much to national politics. But politically speaking, presidents just get blamed for anything that happens in the country while they're in charge, or they get credit for it. So I think we would all probably agree that it's politically a boon to President Trump to have this data come out now. But Pisco, and maybe I want to give him a small piece of credit. I guess this is anecdotal, but I used to live in Washington, D.C., and I visited it, I think twice since President Trump's 2nd term began, and he did deploy the National Guard, something I'm not a fan of. But I will say, again, this is anecdotal and talk from other people, that I many times over the years was harassed, chased by homeless people on the street. You had people loitering. You had lots of stuff. The vibe was very different when I went back, and most of the National Guardsmen were doing nothing. They were standing around at subway entrances and such. But I wouldn't be shocked if that played some role. Anyway, your big picture take here, Pisco.
Yeah, so we can't go off vibes. I think Sean is absolutely correct. Unless there's a reason to think that the national politics, and your intuition, by the way, I'm not saying that you didn't say this, but your intuition, I think, is also correct that there needs to be an explanation for what is causing crime to go down from the national perspective to make the case that, just because you're presiding over it, that therefore that you had that effect on it. We can't just have this like correlation causation thing. I'll note it that Sean omitted one example here, which is, I guess, Alvin Bragg in New York City, and what's going on in New York. Oh yeah, I mean, you can talk about that right now, but I have a response after that.
Oh, I was going to say, in New York, I actually think Commissioner Tisch gets a lot of credit. The previous police commissioner in the city of New York, and by the way, New York State had problems, in my opinion, due to bail reform too, which every legislative session they kind of pare down a little bit and add a little bit more crimes that are bail eligible. But Commissioner Caban, the guy that Eric Adams had appointed before Commissioner Tisch, who's the current commissioner, this guy's twin brother was like selling NYPD police protection to nightclubs. Like, that's what he was indicted for. So it's alleged. I don't think he was convicted yet. So like they were not running a high level operation. Commissioner Tisch comes in and she sends police officers into the subway. In fact, she was driving down crime so well in the year before Mamdani was elected that Mamdani, who initially wanted to throw her ass out of office, ended up keeping her on. So I think Commissioner Tisch deserves a ton of credit for that. And again, she was the key mover in that. It's different depending on the different local municipality, but of course, statewide, bail reform being pared down little by little each and every year, I think has an impact.
So I'm curious, Pisco, let me get your take on this, the central point of kind of Sean's argument here. I'm somebody who's always been sympathetic to criminal justice reform. I think clearly some of it did not work out great. And some of these progressive prosecutors, do you agree, have not worked out?
I don't have enough information on any particulars, but I do know that there have been like specific legislations or regulations that I haven't agreed with in terms of what I think are like high value crimes that need to be gone after, including violent crime that people are incredibly sensitive to. So as I sit here, I don't trust myself to make that kind of empirical case that, they presided over horrible policies. And that's the direct cause for a lot of the stuff. I think a lot of it is COVID, that big bump in crime that we saw in like 2020, 2021 or whatever. But I want to talk about the national environment and the effect on politics, because it goes to show you the kind of bullshit that a lot of right-wing people, I frankly have to say, were pushing in the lead up to the 2024 election, that this is all Biden's fault, that the Democrats can never preside over crime, and have no responsibility with respect to crime. But now you have a bunch of Democratic cities where their crime rates are going down. Are they going to get credit because they were, just absolutely taken to task by Republicans throughout the course, and Biden had to eat a lot of that political guilt for what they did, but now Trump is going to take credit for it, and Kash Patel is taking credit for it. Where is the parity? Where is the consistency in the analysis? I appreciate
there is none. There is none. Yeah. But to be fair, like, that's just what presidents and politicians do. Stock market goes up, it's it's all me. Stock market goes down, it's the last guy, or it's just seasonal or whatever. But Sean, what's your response to the point that Pisco just made?
I think this is a fair point. Like, again, crime is the local issue, and you could make the case, although it's split in the studies, that certain consent decrees on certain departments from the federal government might make the response of the police response there worse because it hampers the police. But overall, the people who did the thing deserve credit, and it actually is bad for the country when we start attributing crime policy locally to the president, because then you don't actually diagnose the actual problem. This is why I'm a huge booster, and I might even donate money to the man, of Ivan Bates, because what he's done in Baltimore it's a miracle. It's amazing what this man has done. And again, it's because of the basic theory that if somebody offends with a gun and you prosecute them, the chances of them reoffending because they're in jail or go down, because the more times you commit a crime with a gun, the more likely you are to eventually shoot and kill somebody. And it's really that simple. And I push back on the COVID thing because Baltimore saw no significant homicide increase, maybe even a slight decrease during COVID, because it was not caused by COVID. It was caused by this Black Lives Matter attitude infesting their government, which is why their homicide spike is back to 2015. A similar thing is true in New Orleans and other places that had these like BLM moments before that. It's cultural attitudes, elected officials on the local level mostly. Sometimes it's not even state policy. It's just local policy, because these are the people on the ground. And yeah, the president, Trump, Kash Patel, they should not in any way, shape, or form be grabbing credit from the deserving parties. And again, you could take credit for little operations like partnering with the local governments like Biden did with Bates and continued under Trump. But beyond that, it is very much on these local politicians for the issue of crime, because crime's a local issue.
But I want to just add one thing before we move on, which is in terms of the federal prerogatives on crime enforcement. I mean, the Trump administration gets an F. Look at the rampant corruption, the things over which they do have federal jurisdiction and where we would want a high level of enforcement, and where it's not as necessarily visible all the time, although they're making it very out and open, the kind of deals that are being done, the graft that's going on, the trades that are happening right before major policies are announced. I mean, they indicted like a Green Beret or something. Are they ever going to look at other people? But in other words, what I'm trying to say is, yes, it's good news that violent crime rates are going down, but the federal prerogative and where Trump needs to, I think, which he'll never do, because I think that they're one of the most corrupt administrations we've ever seen, where they need to focus is on the white collar crime, on the graft, on the stock trading, on the insider trading, that kind of stuff.
It's been a remark. I mean, we could do a whole nother panel on Trump coin and all the bullshit they are getting away with. And Ike Saul over at Tangle did a long form piece about the corruption allegations in the Trump administration. People should check out, and I may revisit